You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold, episode 41. Today we welcome in Sankeetha Selvarajah, managing attorney and shareholder of Selvarajah Law. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how you doing? What's going on in New York?
New York is picking up and it's been warmer, so everybody's finally coming out. You'd have thought that we were in a pandemic.
You would have thought, I know.
And now everyone is out.
Everybody's got that burning desire to get out. I feel it. So we're going to feature you soon. We haven't gotten you on the feed. We're super pumped to get you on the Lawyer Stories feed. That's lawyer_stories on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. So we're starting off with a podcast, but we did connect a while ago. So I'm really excited to have you finally on the show. And of course, I live in the Massachusetts area. You used to live in Boston, so that's pretty cool too. So let's just start right from the beginning and we'll get into like what you're doing today. So like, tell us like, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Sri Lanka, this tiny island off the coast of India. And I lived there for about 3 years with my grandparents. My parents worked for the Nigerian government. So they were in Nigeria. My mother had me, left me at 9 months with my grandparents, and then they went to Nigeria. And they came back and got me when I was 3 years old because my country at that point went into full-out civil war. And so we continued to be in a civil war for the next 59 years. And then, so they came and got me, and I lived in Nigeria with them until I was about 6.5, 7. And then they took me out of school for about 6 months and we kind of traipsed through Europe for a bit. Okay.
Wow.
And, yeah, so they're interesting people. And then we ended up in Toronto, Canada. So that's where I'm Canadian. So I grew up in Canada for the next 11 years. So I consider myself, that is my foundational country. And then I moved to the States when I was 17. And then I did my undergrad and my grad and then my law school in the States.
Wow.
Stay here. Yeah.
I'm sure there's like so many details in there. You whip right through that. So like we might have to pick at that a little bit, but that's pretty awesome. Like you've been like all over the place sort of, right?
It wasn't by choice. So I had, yeah. So my parents are still to this day very, they're exploratory people, like in the sense that, you know, for us to go to different countries is not a big deal. So when I was 16, they sent me off to Fiji, New Zealand, and Australia.
Wow, it's interesting because I like to say like part of my story, and this is Lawyer Stories, so we like to talk about like the path and the journeys, is like I've lived all over New England, and I always think that that's like a big deal. And then like I'm fortunate enough to have you on the show, and you're like, you know, I've lived in X, Y, and Z country. That's crazy.
I'm lucky. I guess part of it wasn't my choice. I mean, I couldn't exactly fend for myself. I needed them. So
yeah, like 6 years old, right?
Right.
So all right. So tell us, like, you're an attorney now. So like, were any of your family members lawyers? Like, is that sort of what?
No. So I am the first. And actually in my family, it's kind of, I'm the black sheep. I was always kind of the black sheep anyway. Okay. So in Sri Lanka, generally it's doctor, dentist, actually it's teacher first. Teacher goes above doctor, dentist.
Really? So teachers above doctor, that's great. That's good.
Yeah. It's the literacy rate in that country is over 90%, definitely. So teachers are called masters. So it's where we actually revere the teachers there too.
Wow. Okay. So what about, like, just to jump in there, like what's the pay scale? Like, do they make more money than?
I don't know.
Okay. It's kind of a hard question, so.
It depends. And honestly, I will say that everybody tries to get like a tutor or a master to come to their house and teach their kids.
Okay. That's cool. All right.
me on education. Yeah.
So so nobody was a lawyer. You didn't have a lawyer where you were like, I want to do that when I grow up. Like your parents were doing different things.
My parents were both doctors.
They were doctors. So what kind of medicine did they do?
So in Nigeria, my father was a surgeon. My mom was a gynecologist. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So when did you, like, this is a question I love to ask. Like, when did you say to yourself, I want to be a lawyer?
Probably, I was actually set to become a doctor myself, and I was going to take the MCATs as well, but probably my junior year of college, I actually went back to Sri Lanka on a family trip.
Okay.
There was something that happened there that made me just change everything and go into law. Actually, I wanted to do international public policy and law after that. Yeah. So during the time that I went back, there was still a civil war. We were in probably the safer part of the country. And when I went, it was probably seeing, I'm considered a minority in that country, my ethnic, my ethnicity. And when I was there, it was, I think I was facing some level of racism or some level of diminishment while I was there that I never experienced, right? I grew up in the West.
Right.
So because of that and seeing it in my own country, I think I wanted to do something that would effectuate change in some way.
Really? So was that the big turning point for you? Like when you said, I don't want to do, so it was more of like a social justice, like.
Yeah, it was actually interesting because, you know, my parents have traveled around the world. They've gone to every different country and they've, you know, worked. And coming back to their own country and seeing that sense of, like, not hopelessness, but just a feeling of futility, like they couldn't do anything at this point. I mean, it's the long war. They grew up with it even before I was born. So there were definitely racial tensions already. And to see that, and I felt hopeless while I was there as well too. So when I came back to the States, I decided to change everything and go into global politics.
Wow. Okay. How'd they feel about that, your folks?
I mean, I always kind of was a person that did whatever I wanted to
Whatever
do.
you wanted to do.
Yeah. So they were like, okay, whatever you feel. I don't think they were disappointed. They never really pushed me towards medicine or law in any way. I don't think they could identify it. Remember, I'm the first lawyer in the family, so they wouldn't know. They didn't have any sense of reference.
Right. So you go ahead. Sorry.
They didn't have a frame of reference to speak to me about it. There was no one that they knew that was going to be a lawyer or had lawyers as children.
So did you ever have like a mentor when you were going to become a lawyer, or maybe in undergrad?
Not yet, no. I had to go find them, actually. So once I knew that I wanted to do law or public policy, I started finding them and started speaking to other lawyers. And I did like a minor internship. I interned with a criminal defense attorney while he did a murder case during.
Really?
Yeah, that was my first foray into law. Obviously, I don't do murder trials now, so you can see how that turned out.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, and we'll get to your businesses soon, but you say you were about public policy and that sort of thing, but you're really into business and you're into startups and technology, and that's pretty amazing. So you sort of shifted course. Like, when did that happen?
So I was always interested in business and law, and I actually went on and did graduate work in international trade and finance, actually. And then before I went to law school, and that is where I really learned about policy and finance and how everything kind of went and moved through economics. Most of the issues in the world actually stemmed from economics in some form. And so that interested me along that path as well. And so when I went into law school, I actually did more of a concentration in international law, international finance, and public policy in that sense, even during law school as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I DC with that realm because I wanted to get into policy in DC.
So where were you at undergrad?
In Buffalo.
You were in Buffalo. That's right. I remember seeing that. So like, how'd you like the weather there?
It was very close to Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why you went there. It was close to Toronto, and okay. And then you ended up at the New England School of Law, which I think it's called New England Law now, or
New England Law, yeah.
So tell me about your law school experience. Like, what was that like? Like, were there any challenges or like what, I mean, for me, and I bring this a lot on the show, like I didn't like the Socratic method. That was sort of something that was challenging for me.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you excelled at or like didn't like or?
I think what got me through law school is that I read really fast. If I didn't if I didn't read really fast, I don't think I would have got through the first year. There's a sheer amount of work we had to read. And I think it was definitely a culture change. I was so used to just reading and then absorbing and then spitting it out. This with law school, I had to completely learn how to learn. And and so I had to sit for hours, read, absorb, critically read, and then understand it enough to apply it and analyze it.
So like how long does it take you to read like 10 pages? Are you just like skimming or are you really like?
I think I can read it now. I'm reading like a lawyer, so I'm reading critically. So I'm probably slowed down.
Okay.
But before then,
did you highlight stuff?
I did highlight. I wrote in the margins.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, my books here. Like I have some law books up here. I mean, they look like workbooks. I had this pen. They promoted this pen at my law school that was like multicolored. So I would sit there and be like, the green is the facts, the red is the rule, the blue is the reasoning. It was. So you get called on. It's like, okay, well, I outlined all this stuff, but I don't remember any of it because I just messed up my entire book. But so that was sort of my method. But like, I think some people can sit there and just read the whole thing and just soak it in like a sponge. And that's.
Yeah, I wasn't that person. I was that person that could read it, but had to reread it to critically understand what it meant. You know, I could absorb it, but it didn't gel until I wrote it and I applied it. So I had to, that's how I learned the type of learner that I was. It was a kinetic learner or a conceptual learner where I had to tie concepts together so that I understood it.
Right.
Or some people are audio where they have to learn, they have to hear it to really absorb
right.
it.
Any classes that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I loved entertainment law. Actually, my entertainment law professor.
Really?
Yeah, who still practices. I just referred a case to her. She's out in New York too, but like she actually encouraged me. She was like, you know what, you should go into entertainment law. And in my head, I'm like, no, I'm gonna go save the world. What are you talking about? Right? Yeah, of course.
You gotta save the world, yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, that's what I thought I was gonna do. I was interested in it, but I loved the artistic mixed with the contractual side. So I always loved contract law. My favorite was anti-money laundering, antitrust and money laundering.
Really? What was your favorite thing about that?
I had a professor, and she's now my mentor. The first thing she taught us was how to money launder.
She taught you how to do it.
Like, you have to think like the enemy. Well, not indirect, like a different, this is what you do. She's like, generally, this is how it's done. Generally, this is where you find the differences and where you can find your loopholes. So she taught us that from the beginning. That was how she opened up the class. The first week, she was just
that's definitely an attention grabber. Look at you, you're talking about it on a podcast 10 years later, you know, so.
I remember it because her method of teaching the class was about it wasn't theory, it was practice. If you're ever going to get this, learn the facts about it, learn the cases, but this is how it is in real life. This is how people or anybody that is of a criminal nature, this is how they're going to go about and do it. At least this is how it's shown itself in the cases that come up.
Wow. No, that's all. By the way, a fun fact here. I went to law school between the years of 2003, 2006. So like, I think we might have like I mean, I was in New England. Like I wasn't at New England Law. I was in Roger Williams. Yep. So I think you graduated in like 07 or something. Is that correct? Wow. That's great. Okay. So
definitely overlapped as well.
You were cutting out a little bit. Sorry.
I said we definitely overlapped.
Yeah, we definitely overlapped. So that's okay. That's kind of cool. So like you went to California, I noticed in like 05.
Yeah.
Like, was that like, what did you do out there? Like you you joined a big summer program.
Yeah. So it was one of the first, I think I was the first cohort or the second cohort. It's called the NAFTA program, North American Free Trade Agreement.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And so we actually had to go to all three countries, Canada, US, and Mexico. And so it was out of San Diego, which is sister cities with Tijuana in Mexico. So we would split our time between Mexico and San Diego at that time, and we were learning and basically dissecting the NAFTA agreement and what it means in trade, environmental, as well as commercial value for that. So I love that. That was remember I did my master's in international trade, so I really, really enjoyed how the law practice applied to it.
Yeah, no, that's so what about tell us about, so okay, we got through like SUNY, you were at Buffalo, right? And then we were at New England School of Law. You didn't take any time off between those two, right? And you stayed in Boston for a little while. Now you're like NYC. And then, so like, tell us about Biz Toco. Is that how you pronounce it?
Biztico. So I started my, yeah. So Biztico is the consultancy that owns the different various levels of consultants or writing that I do for business owners. So along the path of me being a lawyer, I had clients that would just wanted general strategy advice. So most of the way that I practice business law is probably practice business law 40% of the week. The rest of it is really strategy with my clients, talking about how we're going to grow their companies, how we're going to strategize so that we can exit their companies and so forth. The actual law side, the advice, the application, the contracts, I got to tell you, that's only less than half of it. Most of the
Really?
time.
So
Yeah.
So there's more things that you're guiding and counseling these businesses through.
Yeah, I mean, generally that's how it started to come out. So what happened is I'm licensed to practice law in Massachusetts and New York to give legal advice, and I stay within those borders, and that's it.
Yep.
What was happening was the CEOs of the companies that I was advising during that time was like, they had other colleagues in like Kansas and Texas and California, and they're like, hey, can I refer you out there? And I was like, oh no, I can only practice law in these two states. Perhaps, I can find a referral source for you or whatnot. And they're like, well, can you just have a call with them? Okay.
Right.
So I was like, we talked very top level, and I was like, I can't give you legal advice, but you should talk to your lawyer about these things that are pertaining to law. But they're like, we talk through the business side of it, the strategy side of it. And so what happened was we started talking strategy, which was, it was part of the game for our legal practice as it is. And then that's what we started to do, actually, myself and I had another colleague of mine that did IP as well too. So IP is national, so we could talk very broadly about that as well too. So started to work on that and started doing consulting on that end. And that was the better part of it, where we would actually advise certain things to you need to find an attorney within the state of acquisition or where your principal place of business or incorporation are, and then
Right.
that attorney.
So when did you start your firm, like your law firm? When? How long ago?
2009 was the first version of it. So the version that I have right now is the third iteration. So
Really? Tell us about the iterations.
So in 2009, I came and took the Massachusetts bar. And while I was waiting for the bar results, it takes like 4 or 5 months, as you know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. While I was there, I reconnected with an old law school friend of mine who was an IP attorney. And she had already passed the bar in Massachusetts, and she was doing IP law, which was national. And we started to start a firm together, just focusing on startups and small businesses. And while I was waiting, because we were under her license, the minute I got my license, basically started a firm. About a year and a half, 2 years later, we got approached by a larger firm to merge, to basically join their firm and join our practices. And so we did. And it allowed us to give us the platform it needed to grow and to actually work with other disciplines in the law as well. And then 2 years after that, I took about 12 clients that were solely mine, that only did startups and business law with the firm. And then I went and started my firm, which is this version right here that I've had since 2000. Yeah.
Since 2001?
13. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're really into like the tech industry and like that's like the startup. So like, what is it like being this is like kind of a weird, tough question, but I'm just curious because I think it's like kind of out there. Like, what is it like being a woman in the tech industry? Like, do you have to go through a lot of things? I mean, battle people, like, I don't know, like, tell me.
Are you asking if I have different experiences because I'm a woman? And it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's super antiquated. I really don't mean anything by it. I'm just curious.
No. I mean, I don't take any offense to it. I mean, this is on an honest question. Um, there aren't many women in the tech industry.
Yeah.
Flat out. Okay. Should there be? Yes, absolutely. Okay. And I don't know if there isn't because more women don't know about it or the opportunities or whatnot. Have I had different experiences? I'm also a woman in corporate law. Not as many women are in corporate law as well either.
Right.
I don't identify as a female business owner or a female attorney. I am just an attorney, a business
Great.
owner.
Terrific. Yeah.
So I've never self-identified like that. So I don't know if perhaps I've received anything different on that. If I did, I don't think I registered it as much, you know.
So like, how big's your firm now? Like, how big is Selvarajah Law?
So we work with Up Counsel. So it's myself and two other associates this is
Okay.
the main team, because I like to keep my team small and so we're more agile. I actually run the law firm like a tech company, like from a Scrum board. Okay. So
A Scrum board? What? I don't know the Scrum.
It's kind of a tech term where you run it in a certain type of way that it's task oriented.
Okay.
It's kind of like we have standing meetings and we just bang out the tasks and we see where it is on the board.
Okay.
Let's just put it like that.
How would you say you are as a boss?
What
would your employees say?
I think just because I don't have a pyramid structure, it's more of a flat line. So I have interns as well, and they're going to be my future colleagues. So I'd like to think that, this is my future colleague, but I'd like to think that they are also, I'm training them to be also competent lawyers, and then I respect them as people. So I actually asked them a lot. So I asked them about their opinions. What would you do in this matter? We work with disruptive, innovative thinkers. So our attorneys have to be disruptive, innovative thinkers as well for that reason. So I think I like the people I work with. You have
Okay, that's good. We'll take that. I think you're a good boss. I bet you'd be a good.
I don't know. I have different we do different things with the firm. Like every August, it's sabbatical month, so it's a paid sabbatical to go off and work on your creative pursuits.
Really? Wow, that's amazing.
We take that off, and then we're not litigators, right? We're transaction attorneys.
Okay, so that's amazing. So tell me, like, what's the most challenging thing about being an entrepreneur? Like, having your own business? I mean, is it like, I don't know, trying to manage people? Like, is it non-lawyer stuff? Like, tell us what it is.
I think I like running a business, but not running a law firm.
Okay.
Why? Just the malpractice, the hoops that we have to run through, just even to create something, I have to make sure that all the disclaimers are on and just to check with the boards and things of that nature. So it can be a bit limiting. And for that, and if you're okay with living in the lines, but our clients are people that consistently are Venn diagrams where they interlock two different sectors and create a product in the middle. And so we have to make it legal and also find a way that they can also do business and still remain commercially viable at the same time.
So this might be kind of tough to answer, but I'm curious. Like, you work with a lot of startups and you see a lot of tech. Like, do you see anything that hasn't rolled out yet that's going to be like the way of the future that like you can share with us?
You mean like
what's that?
Like products or services that are coming?
Yeah, like a product or service that you think things are heading towards. Like, for instance, like I watch some Gary Vee and I listen to his podcast occasionally, because I like Gary Vee, so I'll listen to him when I can. And he thinks voice is like going to be huge, and I agree with him. The guy is like a wizard. So like, do you see anything in like legal that's kind of like going that way? And I think we're getting to what you're doing now in a minute, because I think that sort of is the way of the future. But just curious, coming from you, if you do see anything.
So what I hope will happen, let's talk about hope and let's see where it might happen. The commoditization of law is probably on its way or is already on the way where
Discuss, yeah.
yeah, so I think that sometimes when I teach community classes, um, people have said, where do I find a lawyer? It's like we're on this random planet and they have to go call that planet to make sure that they can get access to it. So I think the legal access and how people can get to a lawyer will be truncated, like that time period or the accessibility will be increased. I think so, just because people can feel like more lawyers are more relatable and you can have a conversation with them and so forth. I hope it'll go that way where people start to use lawyers as proactive tools rather than reactive tools.
Okay.
Yeah, where they're not
That's interesting.
Yeah, instead of using lawyers like, oh crap, I need you to fix something. It's more or less like, hey, let's talk about the future goals here. How can you help me? Or I have an idea. Let me swing this by you first. And so they include legal within their future plans rather than use it as a byproduct or an afterthought.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I like that commentary. You should write a blog for our website about that. I think.
My soapbox on this. Yeah, no, it's just talking about making legal accessible also allows business owners anyway to build better businesses because they don't spend their money tied up in litigation that could have been avoided.
So I think you're like a true entrepreneur by like looking into like what what you do and like what you've done and like sort of your past. So like, and right now you're doing startup docs, right? So like that's something that looks really intriguing to me. I went on the website and I was checking it out. So I would really love for you to tell us about startup docs.
So Startup Docs came about 5 years ago. I had this idea only because what happens is people will go onto Google and they will Google lawyer their documents, okay, which has its place. Trust me, any contract is better than no contract. However, when it got to us as lawyers, when they were graduating to another level or they were growing as companies, we had to clean up those documents or those documents that were complete or were missing clauses. They were causing more problems than not. And so I thought about, why don't we start from the beginning? Why don't we bring on lawyers and accountants on from the beginning? I mean, to be fair, and I say this often, like if a business is growing, they're going to come over to the dark side anyway, which means they're going to come over and they're going to need a lawyer. They're going to need an accountant to grow profitably and to pay your taxes and to also plan appropriately. And so why don't we start that journey from the beginning? So Startup Docs is about connecting the lawyer and the potential client by the actual document or the service that's needed. So they can do it. It's a done with you, not do it yourself, not done for you, but done with you.
Right.
So we like to also educate the business owner as well too. So if they know what's happening and then we'd say, hey, you can create your own document. It's all lawyer drafted. They just have to fill it out. And then they also have the option of having a lawyer review the document as well. It's all included in the price.
So it's sort of like a streamlined type of.
It is, yeah. Streamlined document generation as well as document, actually company formation. We also form within Massachusetts and New York.
Yep. How long have you been working with doing it?
So we just launched about a month ago to the betas. We're going to go public in about 3 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing. Well, let us know how we can help you at Lawyers here at Lawyer Stories. Like if you tag us in anything, I know it sounds weird, like tag us, but if you're doing the stories, like we'll be happy to repost it. We'll do some things for you. Like let us know.
Awesome. I appreciate it. We've been doing something a little bit different where we've been really, really partnering with community organizations on this. Okay. So I've up to today's date, actually, we got up to 15. We got 15 community partners that are in the entrepreneurial space or are interested in increasing generational wealth by increasing generational mental skills. So I'm a big proponent about teaching people teaching them to fish rather than to just giving them a fish.
Yep.
So teaching them how to build better businesses, because an educated business owner makes better business.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
This is part of it, actually. This is the part that I'm interested in. Startup Docs makes legal accessibility more accelerated as well. So people already have attorneys from the beginning, and they can actually learn how to have a marketable entrepreneurial idea that they can just scale at that point.
Okay. So where do you see Selvarajah Law in like 5 to 10 years down the road?
It's so interesting. Up until the last couple of years, every year I flirted with just selling out and just going in-house every year.
Oh, really? To like a big company or something? Yeah.
So like 2019, and then 2019 is when I really started to just focus and say, you know what, I like this. It's a great job. I'm not going to lie. Like, we have great clients, and every day, 12 years into it, I still love getting up and going to work and meeting amazing clients with disruptive ideas that are like, why not?
But you feel like you work like all the time, right? Like everybody's always trying to get a hold of you. And
yeah, so it's interesting because in many ways we also train the clients, and the clients, again, we're not litigators, so you're
right.
not at 3 a.m. And there's a lot of planning alongside the client, so it's nothing, it's nothing too crazy. It's just more of a sense that we've obviously gotten busier, so clients are expecting more. We actually created Startup Docs as an avenue for people to do it themselves, even our own clients.
Yeah.
So that it would be easier for us, and so that we would just help them on the higher level aspects, like the deals and the bigger contracts and things of that nature.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. So what did we leave out? Like, what do you want to talk about? I think is there anything that we didn't
No,
cover?
whatever. I mean, where do you see, you're doing lawyer stories, in the stories that you have talked to other lawyers, where do you see the practice of law going?
The interviewee turning the podcast on the interviewer. I've used this a few times in job interviews. That's a great tactic. No. So where do I see the practice going? It's a great question that I wasn't really prepared to answer, but I do think.
The reason I ask is because you've talked to more lawyers in this space than I have. So for me as well, I have a different lens on it because I'm looking at it in the practitioner's point of view, but I might have a very limited lens just because of who I roll with, right?
Who you roll with, right? So where do I see the practice of law going? Is that what you're?
What have you been hearing from other lawyers as to where they are going and what they think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the new generation is different. I mean, I think it's like, you're talking about your team like kind of working on a project basis. I think that's sort of how it is. I think people I think the draconian like ways of law firms might be, going a different way. I mean, I think I work with, I feel like I always tend with lawyer stories to end up in like a millennial sort of way, like with people who are, which is great. I mean, they're young, a little younger, and they, it feels good. But I think, people wanting to work on their own hours, their own term when they're most efficient. I think that's the way it's going. I think stuff is going to get outsourced, like stuff that can be done elsewhere. I think it's, I don't think the profession's like, it's necessarily what it might have used to been. I think it's a very noble profession, but I don't think it feels to me, it's not sort of what it used to be like back in the, the 80s or the 70s. That's kind of how I feel. But I also feel like a lot of people I've spoken to are really good attorneys, and they really are thinking outside the box. Like, they want the profession to change and to be different, and they want to, give their employees freedom to like work when they're most productive, and they want to, be with their kids at home, like if they're having kids, like, and then do their work elsewhere or at a different time. So I think like there is some change rather than this sort of like the regimented, 8 to 6 or 8 to 7, whatever it is, law firm hours. So I sort of see a shift that way. I don't know if that helps, like the answer for.
It does. I mean, I will say that I agree with some of that. I wanted to create a law firm that I would enjoy going to.
Yeah, it's important. You have to.
is. And for that reason, and I created a law firm that I get to work with people that I admire and that are consistently pushing the envelope as
Yep.
well. So it's not the same old every day, you know. So there's constantly stimulating, constant different sectors, different types of problems, different types of solutions that they've come up with.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, also like what I see like from social media is like a lot of people connecting. I mean, Lawyer Stories is here to connect lawyers and lawyers and lawyers and law students, and just sort of build a community. Like we have I feel a community sense every time I look at Lawyer Stories.
Yeah.
And I think that has not. I don't know if that's been done before because generally our profession is very adversarial. You know, it's people wanting to just like beat down other people in the profession. They want to serve papers on Christmas. You know, they want to like do, you know, that you're gonna have to answer. They want to do things like that. But like, you know, I'm personally, I'm more of like a mediator than a litigator. You know what I'm saying? That's like just my personality. But I do see it more as people sort of connecting through social media. And that is social media. I mean, I don't think people realize how big that is because they're so used to it right now, and they've been born into this era of social media, you know, of Facebook, of Instagram, of MySpace, of Friendster, you know, that like I know Friendster, right? Like the attorneys didn't have that back in the day. And now we're at a point where, you know, you can comment on a post and make a new associate like doing that, or like get some referrals because you saw somebody's lawyer story on Instagram or Facebook. You know what I mean? So I think like social media plays a huge role in meeting the type of professionals that you want to meet within your profession.
It does. It does. I've met some interesting people. I'm a big member, or like I'm a big proponent of the American Bar Association. I joined it early on in my career, probably 10, 11 years ago. And I've met a ton of attorneys that way, especially in the Young Lawyers Division and then the Business Law section, and then now in the GP Solo section. And along the different sections and the people there, I found my mentors there too. So I was lucky to find great mentors.
Yep.
National that did the next steps so that I could learn from them as well too.
Well, look, I mean, the practice of the law is the practice of the law. Like, it's great to find these mentors that have been at it for years and years because you're going to need to know how to do the same things. You know what I'm saying? But I think like the attitudes towards each other and like the way that maybe it's practiced might change a little bit.
So I gave up litigation about, maybe 5-6 years ago. And I'll be honest, what we do is transactional law, and it's very different from litigation, or in the sense that for the most part, we're working on deals or how to, you know, sell a company or buy a company and so forth. Yep. My opposing, I don't really even call them that, the other side, the other counsel, buy counsel, seller counsel, we work together. It's a collaborative relationship. It's more or less like, don't kill the deal.
Right.
This out and let's close it. We both have a shared goal of closing that deal.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. So it's not adversarial. So for me, I've been out of that kind of realm for quite some time. I do have, you know, friends of mine that are still in litigation, and it blows my mind. I was like, wow. And they thrive off of it. Like I said, that's their zone of genius. That's that's what they're good at. And it wasn't something for me.
I think everybody's going to find their way and like what they want to do. I think that's like so important. And I think that you're a great example of that actually, because of the story that you told of, you know, your parents being doctors and you saying, look, I was really interested in, you know, in this, and I want to pursue, you know, I want to help people, or like, you know, that sort of thing. So congrats to you. You're a great example to like everybody out there, and we're super excited to post your lawyer story. Go ahead. Did you have something?
No. Thank you. That was kind of you.
Yeah, of course. You know, keep doing what you're doing. So was there anything else that you wanted to, how can everybody get a hold of you out there in the Lawyer Stories community?
So you can obviously follow me, Sankeetha.esq on social, on Instagram. I'm also Sankeetha.esq on Twitter. And I am also found at Sankeetha.com. Sometimes I do some speaking arrangements for people, and I come in and I connect with people as well too. It's always good to be part of the conversation. I learned so much on just being part of the panel with other entrepreneurial people or people that are just interested in actually, growing their community or growing the next step. So I'm more interested and veer towards those type of people.
Yeah, and by the way, if you ever see anybody on Lawyer Stories that you don't want to, cold like introduce yourself to, we'd be more than happy to make that introduction for you.
Broker, cool. Yeah.
I'm a social broker, as one of my friends say. That's what I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, well, thank you, Sankeetha, so much for being here. Keep making it happen, like doing what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job with everything. I'm so psyched that we finally got to do this.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for supporting. I wish you've been around. You've been checking in with me for about, almost a year now. Okay. Yeah. And I've been trying, let's connect, let's do this. And I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Boston strong, I know you were out there. I wanted to get it done, and we did. So, whatever we could do to help, reach out to us. Like we will totally help you out.
Awesome.
So everybody out there, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.